Two animals, bound by grief, refuse to let go of their owner. Day after day, they cry and wait for a return that will never come. But when the vet examines their collar, the truth behind their mourning will shock everyone. Stay with us for a revelation that will leave you speechless. The house felt empty, a hollow shell of its former self. The air, once filled with laughter and warmth, now seemed cold and distant. It had been 2 days since the owner had passed away, and the silence weighed heavy on the small home. The dog and cat, once playful and carefree, now sat together, side by side, their eyes filled with sorrow and confusion. Max, the German shepherd, lay at the foot of the couch, his ears drooping as he stared longingly at the door, as if waiting for the return of the person he loved so dearly. Next to him, Whiskers, the tabby cat, curled up on the soft rug, occasionally letting out a soft, mournful meow. She had never been one to cry, but now, her small body trembled with every breath. They weren't just grieving the loss of their owner, they were lost without them. And the house, it had never felt more lonely. It had been 3 days since the owner's passing, and the house was eerily quiet. Max and Whiskers were still lost in their grief, but today, something felt different. The two animals had been unusually still all morning, their eyes never leaving the doorway, as if they were waiting for someone to return. But no one did. Max, usually so full of energy, barely lifted his head from the carpet. He let out a soft whine every now and then, his gaze never straying from the front door. Whiskers, too, seemed more anxious than usual. She paced around the room, her soft paws barely making a sound against the hardwood floor, but her eyes constantly darted to the same spot, her owner's favorite chair. Then, it happened. Max suddenly stood up, his ears perked, his nose twitching. As he sniffed the air, he growled softly, a low, concerned sound that seemed to vibrate with unease. Whiskers followed his lead, walking slowly to the chair and sitting down in front of it, staring intently at the spot where her owner's scent still lingered. Something was wrong, and the animals knew it before anyone else did. As the days passed, Max and Whiskers' unusual behavior only intensified. Their crying, their restless pacing. It was clear they weren't just mourning the loss of their owner. They were acting as though they knew something was wrong, something no one else could see. Concerned, the family decided to take them to the vet, hoping it would help settle their distress. The clinic was quiet when they arrived. Dr. Henderson, a seasoned veterinarian known for her calm demeanor, greeted the family and their grieving pets. Max, usually friendly and eager, stayed close to Whiskers, both animals clearly unsettled. They hadn't stopped crying since they entered the building. Dr. Henderson knelt down, gently trying to comfort Max. She examined the dog's posture, his unblinking eyes, and his tense, trembling body. There's no obvious injury, no sign of illness, she murmured to herself, but why are they acting like this? She turned her attention to Whiskers, who was nervously sniffing the air. The cat's behavior was equally puzzling. It's like they're waiting for something, she thought aloud, unsure of what was causing their distress. Something in her gut told her this wasn't just ordinary grief. With a furrowed brow, Dr. Henderson prepared to examine the collar, hoping it would provide some answers. Dr. Henderson stood back, her brow furrowed in thought as she observed Max and Whiskers. The animal's emotional connection was impossible to ignore. Max's eyes never left Whiskers, and the cat, despite her usually independent nature, stayed close to the dog. Something deeper was at play, something beyond simple grief. She decided to start with Max. The German shepherd's usual exuberance was gone, replaced by an unsettling stillness. He didn't bark or wag his tail as she approached. Instead, he just watched her, his large eyes filled with worry. Dr. Henderson gently ran her hands along his body, checking for any signs of pain or discomfort. Nothing. She then moved to Whiskers, who was now sitting quietly in the corner of the exam room, her tail wrapped around her paws. The cat's eyes followed Dr. Henderson's every movement. It wasn't like her at all to be this still. "Whiskers, what's going on with you?" Dr. Henderson whispered, almost as if she were expecting an answer. Max whimpered softly, his eyes darting toward the collar that still hung loosely around his neck. It was then that Dr. Henderson noticed something. The collar, too, was different. There was a small, weathered tag hidden beneath the fabric. Dr. Henderson's fingers brushed against the collar, and her curiosity grew. It didn't look like the standard tag you'd find on most pets. This one was worn, almost hidden beneath layers of thread. She carefully moved the fabric aside, revealing a small, faded inscription on the metal tag. The words were almost illegible, but there was no mistaking the urgency they conveyed. Max let out a low whine, his eyes fixed on Dr. Henderson's every move. Whiskers, too, seemed to sense the importance of the moment, inching closer with an expression of quiet anticipation. The vet squinted, her heart beginning to race as the text became clearer. The message read, "Help us. The truth is in the house. Don't trust what you see." Dr. Henderson's breath caught in her throat. She blinked, trying to make sense of what she had just read. Who had put this message on the collar? And why? There was no denying the weight of the words, and something in her gut told her it wasn't just some weird coincidence. There had to be a deeper meaning. She looked at Max, then Whiskers, and realized they weren't just grieving. They were trying to tell someone something. Her mind raced as she thought of the implications. Was the message connected to the owner's passing? Did it hold the key to understanding why these animals were acting so strangely? The weight of the discovery hit her like a wave. This wasn't just a vet visit. It was the beginning of a mystery that needed solving. Dr. Henderson's hands trembled slightly as she held the collar, her mind racing with questions. She glanced at Max, whose eyes were still fixed on her with an intensity she hadn't seen before. Whiskers, too, had moved closer, her gaze unwavering. It was as if the animals were waiting for Dr. Henderson to make the next move, as if they knew something she didn't. What does this mean? Dr. Henderson muttered to herself, turning the collar over in her hands. Her thoughts were swirling. This wasn't just an ordinary vet visit. There was something else here, something darker. Suddenly, Max let out a sharp bark, his voice full of distress. Whiskers responded with a high-pitched meow, as though urging the vet to hurry. Dr. Henderson's heart raced. These animals weren't just reacting out of grief anymore. They were desperate. She took a deep breath and examined the collar again, hoping for more clues. There it was, a small symbol on the back of the tag, barely visible in the dim light. It looked like a family crest, but she couldn't place it. Her hands were shaking now as she picked up her phone and started searching. The symbol looked strangely familiar, but it wasn't until she found a match that the pieces began to fall into place. The crest was linked to a wealthy family, one with a dark history. And suddenly, it clicked. The owner's passing hadn't been an accident. This was no ordinary death. The realization hit Dr. Henderson like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just dealing with two grieving animals. She was dealing with a mystery much bigger than she had ever imagined. The tension in the room was palpable. Max and Whiskers sat side by side, their eyes wide, their bodies tense, as if they, too, understood the gravity of the situation. Dr. Henderson put the collar down slowly, her hands still trembling from the discovery. She had always known pets could be sensitive, but this was beyond anything she had ever experienced. Max let out a soft whimper and nudged Whiskers, as if assuring her everything would be okay. Whiskers responded by curling up next to him, her small body seeking comfort. The two animals, who had been so lost in their grief, now seemed to have found some peace in one another's presence. Dr. Henderson